Hello there, and welcome to Weekly Pick'ems on Unqualified Opinions. I'm Marco Yerkovich, and today I'm joined by Will Byerman and Paul Hires. So let's get right into it with everyone's favorite segment, Just the Numbers with Paul Hires.
Yeah, so for the first 5 weeks, we've got some pretty good numbers here. We'll go through the rankings real quick. Marco, you were up at the top there through 2 weeks, but have dropped considerably since then, going just 2-7 in the last 2 weeks and sitting at 11-12 overall.
I'd like to blame the Saints, the Celtics, the Ravens, the Patriots,
And
all of those
Minnesota,
teams that hurt my feelings. Thanks for putting me in dead last.
followed by Tim Seipel in 5th, just one game ahead at 12-11. Will at 4th at 13-10. Jared and Joseph surprisingly tie for 2nd. No DeHaan curse this year as Jared is 7-3 in the NFL. And how about Joseph? 9-1 in his first 10 NFL picks on the show.
He knows both types of football, apparently.
Yes, so 4-1 last week for him, with the only loss coming in that Man City sweep we had last week. And then up at the top, I mean, come on, it's not a surprise. 16-7 for me. Also 9-1 in the NFL, with the one loss coming when I picked the Vikings to beat the Colts. Some notables here: clean sweeps. Off to a terrible start. We are 3-3. Come on, guys.
Put your mortgage on our clean sweeps. You'll pay it off in no time.
Everyone picking the Clippers to beat the Nuggets, I believe it was, and the Vikings over the Colts. And then this last week, Man City over Leicester City did not go well at all. So 3-3 in clean sweeps. We talked about the only picks last year. Only pick records in the NFL are 0-7. Marco, you're 0-4 overall.
That's
and
how I
Will,
like it.
You're 0-2 in only picks. So watch out for those one-pick teams this week.
All right, Paul, the Pick'ems GOAT, as we call him. He won last season of Pick'ems, and he's probably going to win this year because he's just a god at Pick'ems. So let's move into them. First up, we've got our NBA Finals Pick'em. Also, if you haven't checked it out already, Will and I did an NBA Finals preview on the channel. It's great. Go give that a like. Jared, Joseph, and Tim all have the Lakers. Paul, who's your pick?
Yeah, I think, as much as I want to pick the Heat, I just love how they play. I love just their play style on offense with Jimmy Butler. And I mean, for more in-depth analysis, go check out that video we mentioned earlier, but you guys kind of covered everything that needs to be said there. But I've loved seeing the Heat play throughout these playoffs and in the bubble. They've just really turned it up. And as much as I want to see them win, I have to go with the Lakers. I think when it comes down to it, LeBron James is a player made for the playoffs. And I think he picks up his 4th finals. And as you guys mentioned, it's just kind of a storyline written. I can see it happen. I will pick them in 6 games for this one.
All right, so Will and I both picked the Heat. Not to spoil our video from earlier, I'll link that in the description down below. Will, I don't know if you want to spoil anything from that video, but yeah, we both picked Miami. But we can save the analysis for that video, but anything you want to say in particular?
I do really appreciate how Paul says that he feels like LeBron is made for the playoffs, but as we talked a little bit about, we didn't go too in-depth because we're not trying to make anything dramatic with this playoff series, but you could almost argue referee and call-wise that the playoffs are made for LeBron James. That being said,
these are facts.
For reasons that you'll have to tease this special episode, for reasons that will be known to you if you watch this episode.
Link in the description.
We have I have several reasons to believe that the Miami Heat are able to pull this one off. I'll take them in 7.
Yeah, I've got the Heat in 7 as well. Again, check that video out. Link in the description. So let's move on to some college football. We've got number 7, the Auburn Tigers. At number 4, the Georgia Bulldogs, Saturday, 6:30 p.m. on ESPN. Jared and Joseph going with Georgia. Meanwhile, Tim is going with Auburn. Paul, who's your pick?
Yeah, and I haven't been, following the SEC too much this season just with the lack of Big Ten football. However, Auburn did play a very good first game of the season against Kentucky with a 29-13 victory, and I think they've really kind of picked up where they left off last year with Nix at quarterback. He's already got 3 touchdowns on the board. But I am going to have to go with the Bulldogs. I think Georgia's really, they're going to be contending for another playoff spot again this year. And 37 points up against Arkansas. I think their offense is really moving, and I think they'll get the win at home.
All right, Will, who's your pick in this one?
I actually have to agree with Tim Seipel on this one. I just think that Auburn has a better quarterback situation right now. Bo Nix is for sure a star on the rise. And if you look at Georgia, they've had Stetson Bennett had to take over. And he's a fun story just because he was a walk-on. He started at Georgia, transferred to JUCO, ended up walking back onto Georgia. He replaced DeJuan Mathis as the starting quarterback and led them to their first victory of the season. The wild card here is former 5-star quarterback from USC, JT Daniels, who began his career as an 18-year-old starter, has now transferred to Georgia, and he's eligible to play now. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that game. But I think Auburn has it.
Yeah, so both of these teams struggled in week 1. Auburn had a tight one against Kentucky that they eventually pulled away in the second half. And then Georgia was really close with Arkansas, really alarmingly close until late in the game. But I do have to trust Georgia on this one. I have to agree with Joseph, Jared, and Paul on this one. I'm going with Georgia. So now let's get into our NFL pick'ems. First up, we have a game that's actually been postponed due to COVID tests being positive on the Tennessee Titans. But this game will be played on either Monday or Tuesday, so we don't have a specific time for you right now. But we're still picking the game because it's really important. 2 3-0 teams that may not win their division, so this could be important in the wild card running. So we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Tennessee Titans. Jared went with the Titans, Joseph with the Steelers, and Tim also going with the Titans. Paul, who's your pick in this one?
Yeah, and this one's kind of a flip of the coin, if you ask me, just because both teams haven't played the best schedule to this point. But I think that being said, they are both playoff teams, and you mentioned it's really a crucial game because it could come down to a tiebreaker for a wild card spot later on in the season. I think I got to go with Tennessee. Derrick Henry's been really excellent so far this season. I really like what Tennessee did last year. They almost lost, I think, one of their games earlier this season, but I think they can get the job done against Pittsburgh.
All right, Will, who's your pick in this one?
I originally was going to pick Tennessee. However, they are unable to get into their facilities until Saturday, I believe. Only one more player on their roster tested positive, so by and large, they're pretty healthy. And obviously, we have no way of knowing who those players are. The NFL isn't releasing that information. But the Steelers are now suddenly a team that has an abundance of time to plan for a Tennessee team that, by the way, very easily could be 0-3 right now. It's come down to the wire in every one of their games. Normally, I would have picked Tennessee, but I think, again, the Steelers have extra time to prepare. The Tennessee Titans have very, very little time to prepare for a very good Steelers team. So I'll take Pittsburgh on this one.
And Will, that is a tremendous point, both about your fact that they've been extremely close, especially in their opening game against the Denver Broncos. They also will have so little time to prepare. And obviously, this football game is probably not even some of these players' primary focus right now. So just on that fact, as well as the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers have actually been playing quite well. They had a convincing win against the Houston Texans last Sunday. They've been playing pretty well overall. So I'll go with Pittsburgh, although it will be a very close matchup, as Paul alluded to. And so from a pair of 3-0 teams to a pair of 0-3 teams, we've got the Minnesota Vikings at the Houston Texans Sunday at noon on Fox. This is a really important game for either of these teams to get their seasons back on track and still potentially contend for a wild card spot. So Jared has picked the Texans, while Joseph has gone with the Vikings, and then Tim has also gone with the Texans. So Paul, who do you have in this one?
I think the thing to look at this one is the schedule. And, the Texans have played arguably 3 top 10 teams in their first 3 games. And I mean, they lost by 14 to Kansas City. Obviously Baltimore and Pittsburgh are up there as well. I think this Texans team can do something this season. I don't know if they're a playoff team, but I think they've been having troubles early this season just because of the toughness of the schedule. The Vikings, on the other hand, really don't look like they're there. A tough loss to Green Bay in week 1, and then they just didn't look like they had any offense against the Colts. I just don't see this Vikings secondary doing much against Deshaun Watson and their offense. I've got to go with Houston.
All right, Will, who's your pick in this one?
Once again, I'm going to end up picking against my buddy Paul here. I just think the Vikings are a better overall team. Again, the intrigue with this one was both of these two teams, Texans, Vikings, is that they were supposed to be firmly in the run for the division. Texans were probably favored to win the South, and the Vikings were supposed to be like a little behind Green Bay, but not by much. And now both of them obviously in an 0-3 hole. Again, the reason this is such a big deal, and this is a pick-em, is because one of these teams is going to go 0-4, and that is going to have a dramatic impact on their playoff chances. Even with the expanded wild card this year, it's looking very competitive so far. I just think I think Dalvin Cook is going to be a major difference maker for the Vikings. And also, I think the Vikings, their D-line has been really well. They rushed the ball well, and Deshaun Watson's already been sacked 13 times. So I'm liking the Vikings for this one.
Yeah, you guys mentioned some of the big storylines of this one. Obviously, two 0-3 teams. An 0-3 team has never made the playoffs, and that could change this year if either of these teams can get back on the horse and win this game. You guys mentioned talented rosters. The coaches could potentially be on the hot seat if they start 0-4, especially Bill O'Brien after a questionable offseason trade with DeAndre Hopkins to the Cardinals. But speaking specifically about this game, the Texans have played closer games than I think the Vikings have. The Vikings, the scorelines look close because, for instance, in the Green Bay game, it was just a lot of garbage time yards and points. The games were firmly won against the Vikings outside of the Titans game. So I think I'll have to go with the Texans. I think they might have the better overall roster and certainly the better quarterback in Deshaun Watson. So I think if things break down, if it comes down to the wire, I think Deshaun Watson can win this game for the Texans. And so now our final game of the Pick'em, it's the New England Patriots at the Kansas City Chiefs, Sunday at 3:30 p.m. on CBS. Jared, Joseph, and Tim all going with the Chiefs. Paul, who's your pick in this one?
I would have picked them if they hadn't have won. I think Monday's game just proved that no defense can really face Patrick Mahomes and his weapons. He's got Kelsey, Hill. This offense is lethal. They're going to win this one and many more to come.
All right, Will, who's your pick in this one?
I'm going to go for the Chiefs as well. I just think simply they have a better roster, top to bottom, for all the reasons Paul says. I think I really want some in-depth analysis from you, Marco, because I'm very curious to see which team you're going to pick.
All right, so the Patriots have the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL. Now, the Ravens have the number 2 rushing offense, and while they did run a substantial amount against Kansas City, a lot of that was at a time when Kansas City was up by 2 or 3 touchdowns and was allowing the Baltimore offense to, get 5-6 yards here or there because it wouldn't cripple the Kansas City defense and team as a whole because they had built such a large lead. The Patriots secondary looks pretty weak right now considering how Russell Wilson sliced and diced it for 5 touchdowns and over 300 yards. And I think Patrick Mahomes is going to do more of the same, if not more lethally than Russell Wilson did. I do think the rushing attack with Cam Newton is going to shrink the game. There's going to be less plays because New England's going to try and slow the pace. But I don't really think that matters with Kansas City. Baltimore, that's their MO, and it completely destroyed their approach to the game. Kansas City is far and away the best team in the NFL to a degree that I don't think I can really comprehend right now, considering we thought we were entering an era of football parity that would have been unparalleled. But Kansas City looks ridiculous right now, and I can't believe I'm doing this. But for the first time ever, I'm going to pick against the Patriots. Kansas City is unreal. I'm going with the Chiefs.
I do believe this is the first time you've not just picked against the Patriots, but the city of Boston as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Boston, for my transgressions.
How can Boston recover from you losing your unwavering, never-ending support?
They cannot play the Chiefs because that's just, it's over if you play the Chiefs. That's a challenge.
What about the Heat?
I don't want to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, really, Kansas City is such an amazing team. Even I have to waver from my undying support for the city of Boston and its tremendous sports teams. Now, however, really, the only way an upset can happen, I'll be honest, is probably Patrick Mahomes has to get injured at some point. And if that does happen, we can blame the Patrick Mahomes injury. But if by some miracle the Patriots pull off an upset and Bill Belichick is the greatest coach of all time, it could happen. Like, there's a very, very slim possibility. I am sorry, the city of Boston. I'm sorry, Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick, Cam Newton, for doubting you. But everything is stacked against you right now.
Save your apologies because it's not going to happen.
It's probably not. I've got the Chiefs. Everybody's got the Chiefs. It is a clean sweep, which works against Kansas City, but that's pretty much the only thing working against them at the moment. So that is it for our weekly pick'ems. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave your own unqualified opinions in the comment section down below. Again, I was joined by Will Byerman and Paul Hires. I'm Marco Yurkovich. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next time.